Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Salesforce Developer Breakout. Are you all enjoying World Tour today? Yes, yes. Excited faces? This is excellent news. My name's Hannah Trimby, and today, with my lovely co-hosts Heather and Satya over there, we're going to be talking about how we can build apps faster together with the help of the Lightning platform. I'm a lead solution engineer at Salesforce. This involves working with customers to understand how they do business and look at ways that our technology can support them. I'm really excited to be here today to be talking to you about how the latest innovations to the platform can help you as developers. I'm sure you've seen this slide a few times today. For anyone who's been around all morning, just a reminder, please make your purchasing decisions on the basis of functionality that is generally available. So today, we're going to be looking specifically at how we can build apps faster. I'm going to be talking to you first about how we can build with modern web standards, and then later on, Heather's going to be showing us how we can build with a more modern developer experience. We're going to be seeing a couple of demos as well, so if you hate slides, stay with us. We'll get to the exciting bit very soon. We're all connected. At the moment, we're in this era, which is being coined with the term the fourth industrial revolution. We're seeing advances in things like AI, robotics, and connected products. And it's completely transforming the way that we're living and we're working. But it's also changing customer expectations. Customers now expect us to connect with them on every channel that they choose. And that's where Salesforce can help. At the heart of this transformation, we've got the customer success platform. Customers can connect through sales, through service, through marketing, through e-commerce, any touch point that they need. But remember, we are not just about technology at Salesforce. We're also about change. IDC are coining this growing economy as the Salesforce economy. We're actually impacting global change. And IDC are estimating that by 2022, we're going to have created over 3.3 million jobs worldwide. It's actually the local impacts that are really interesting here. In Australia alone, IDC estimate that by 2022, we're going to have 79,000 local jobs created through the Salesforce economy. And that's actually going to add over 29 billion to Australian GDP. So if you're a company that's considering implementing Salesforce, it's really important that you know that there's this growing ecosystem of skilled partners and individuals who can help you achieve success. But how do these people get skilled up to make you successful? Has anyone heard of Trailhead? Yes, yes, yes. Anyone a Trailhead Ranger? Yes. Fantastic, that's more than I thought. We are very proud of the stats that you see on this slide here. So we've got over 5 million Salesforce developers who have skilled themselves up purely through the use of Trailhead. That's pretty phenomenal when you consider that it's a free resource. Interestingly, over 28% of those Salesforce developers are female. That's a pretty great statistic for this area. Check out Trailhead if you haven't been on it yet. So let's get into the actual meat. So I'm going to be talking to you first about how we can build with modern web standards and how that's going to accelerate our productivity. So why should we build with our modern web standards? Well, there's several core benefits, which we'll also demonstrate to you in the demo today. First of all, you get enhanced productivity. This one is huge. We're going to be looking at the exact number of lines of code that's required to actually build these apps. It's hardly anything. Enhanced performance. We're going to be looking at things like caching, which is actually going to make your apps faster and faster. And finally, interoperability. We're going to show how you can actually make use of your existing frameworks with these new frameworks that we're showing you, and they work together seamlessly. Anybody already used to developing on Salesforce? Yep, a few of you, existing customers. So when we first launched, we gave you tools like Apex and Visual Force, which helped you to customize the application to look the way that you wanted. We've been continuously enhancing and giving you more and more development tools. In 2014, that was the big change. That's when we launched the Lightning framework. Anyone who went from Classic to Lightning knows exactly what that entailed. But with that came Lightning Components. We're going to be looking at those a bit later on today. Most recently, we also launched platform events. So we can now make our apps run even more efficiently through this publish and subscribe model. But what we're here to talk to you about today is Lightning Web Components. But to understand why we're giving you Lightning Web Components, we need to look a little bit at how the stack has changed. Back in 2014, the web standards had a foundation layer which were fairly limited. We had things like a standard rendering engine, we had standard elements, events, and we had a core language, which was ECMAScript 5. But there were several limitations with this foundation, and it didn't enable the development of those enterprise class, large-scale developments that we really want as developers. So that's when the stack completely changed. And if you look at the core stack today, it's very different to what it looked like 5 years ago. We're now building on these modern web standards, and it includes all these custom elements, so things like modules, decorators, templates, all built on web components. And this has actually opened the door to this new breed of frameworks, which run on specialized services. So, what are Lightning Web Components? So this is the Salesforce implementation of this new breed of frameworks that run seamlessly with your existing components. They are fantastic. They're generally available from February, so you can start using them now. Some of the benefits, which we'll be demonstrating later, they've got enhanced productivity. If you use modern web standards, it makes your job so much easier as a developer. You can use a lot less code. We can use elements, classes, modules, all kinds of statements, which we'll look at shortly. They're also engineered for performance. Your apps will get a lot faster if you build on modern web standards. And best of all, they're completely compatible with anything you're doing currently. You don't have to change a thing. A quick overview of the architecture for those of you who are not familiar with Lightning Components. We'll go quite quickly through this. We don't want to dwell on it. We're going to show you it in the demo anyway. Basically, a Lightning Component is a self-contained, reusable unit of code, which enables you to build out these really sophisticated UI frameworks. And it's really enabling us to build these large-scale enterprise apps. They're fully encapsulated. So if you, as the component author, want to make changes, the actual consumers of the component, they're not impacted at all. Very powerful. So, if you want to build a Lightning component, there's now 2 ways that you can do it. You can use the previous framework, which was the Aura programming model, which was launched back in 2014. That will still work as you're used to. Or you can use Lightning Web Components. If you're new to Salesforce, we recommend you start with Lightning Web Components because there's so many benefits associated with them. But if you've got Aura components that are already built, you can carry on using them. Any new components, build them with Lightning Web Components. The 2 will still continue to work seamlessly together. So let's check out the demo and see some of these benefits in action. So here we are, we're in our sample gallery. Now this is available on Trailhead in the sample gallery. Check out that URL. There's a number of sample recipes in here that have code related to Lightning component development. This is a really great resource, and our Salesforce developers actually leverage this every single day when they're building their Lightning Web Components. If you click on the recipes tile, it actually takes you to the GitHub source where you can view all the source code. So take a look at that. We're going to jump now into the recipes, which are in our Scratch org. So all of these cards here, each one is a recipe, and it's got some sample code related to a Lightning Web Component. They're all organized logically by topic, so you can see the tabs across the top there. We've got data service, we've got composition, we've got Aura, we've got navigation, and so on. We're going to start our first demo on the Hello tab. Now this first recipe is all about the benefits of web standards. We're going to take a look at this Hello binding card here. This is a really simple one. All it does, it displays a greeting based on an input string. So if we change the input here, it updates the greeting. Super simple. But we're going to show you why web standards make this so good. Let's take a look at the code. So first of all, we're going to jump into the JavaScript. And we can see that this has been imported using a standard ES class. It's also making use of a standard hello binding class here, again using the same syntax. We're using an @track decorator here to bind to our greeting variable, which has been initialized to world here. And this makes it reactive. So when the greeting changes, it updates our view. So let's take a look at our view, which is in the HTML. It's making use of standard template tags. And we can also see here that we're using the curly bracket syntax here to set our value to greeting. So as we update the greeting, the value updates, all very reactive. But what's also interesting about this syntax here, it's encapsulated in this Lightning card, which is one of our base Lightning components. This Lightning card, if I hover over that now, we can actually go direct to the documentation for this base Lightning component. We can just click on that, Satya. This is a great tool. If you don't know what something does and you want to reference the components library, you can literally go straight to it from within the code itself. And we can check out the documentation related to that base Lightning component, or we can use Quick Find and search for any other ones for a particular use case. One last thing I wanted to show you on this recipe, if we can just jump back into the Hello recipe browser. Just back into the browser itself. I'm also just going to quickly show you, if we click on Inspect DOM for the Hello binding, what's really nice about this now is the Hello binding custom tag is actually included in the HTML. It makes it a whole lot more readable. So hopefully you can start to see how making use of these web standards is actually making you a whole lot more productive. Let's move on to the next recipe. So we're going to jump into the Apex tab now. And on this particular recipe, it's a really simple one. It just uses an Apex method. Anyone used Apex methods before? Yeah, excellent. So this Apex method, it's really simple. It takes a search for a contact, and it returns the contact that it matches with. But let's take a look at the code that sits behind this. This recipe is all about the productivity and performance gains that you get from Lightning Web Components. So we can see the method here. We've got the find contacts method. If you can just highlight that bit, Satya. So we can see here that it's actually just accepting a search key, which is getting updated and returning a value when it gets invoked by the Lightning Web Service. But how do we actually get this method to be called by the Lightning Web Component? Oh, sorry, just one last thing. Check out that cacheable equals true flag. We're going to come back to that. That's the performance bit. Let's jump across now and have a look at how this gets called into the JavaScript. So here we are. This, again, is a standard class. We can see that we've imported the method at the top there. So we've just used the import function to import the capability for this Apex class. Here we've actually used the @track decorator and the @wire decorator. So we've bound the @wire decorator to actually return the property for find contacts and store it into contacts here when the search key updates. So really simple, really straightforward, and that's one line of code. It's pretty good, pretty good. Let's check out the performance benefits. Let's jump back into the browser and just bring up the performance monitor. Okay, if we search for a contact, let's search for Michael. When we click search, that method runs, and it returns a result in about 450 milliseconds. Okay, let's try and search for Amy. And that took even longer. But this time, let's search for Michael again. This time, hopefully, this should not do a server call at all. There's no server call. It's returned Michael, but it's returning the value from cache this time. Remember that cacheable equals true flag? That method is now being invoked from the cache store. Awesome productivity gains, awesome performance gains. Starting to see it? Let's move into the next recipe. This recipe is all about metadata. In this form here, we can see it's a really simple layout. It's basically enabling us to view and edit records. When you combine metadata with web standards, you get really phenomenal productivity gains. Salesforce knows all of the fields that it needs to operate. It's all stored as metadata. So if we actually look at the fields here, this metadata can significantly reduce the number of lines of code when we use it. Let's look into the code here. Into the record. So here we are. We can see this Lightning record foam, which is actually a Lightning-based component again. In here, we're just listing the metadata for the fields that we need. Hardly any lines of code at all. Imagine how many lines of code you would have to write if you weren't using the metadata. Let's take a look at the template that sits behind this. Over in the JavaScript. The JavaScript, yep. Here, we've just imported all of these fields from the schema. And this is giving us really great referential integrity. We can't delete a field if it's used in the code here. And we know exactly what's been imported here. You can't import a field that doesn't exist. Hardly any lines of code and referential integrity. That's the benefit of building with these modern web standards. Let's take a look at our final recipe now. Let's jump back into the browser. And this last recipe is all about how your components are compatible with each other and the interoperability of them. So we're going to look at an embedded Lightning Web Component that sits inside an Aura component. Anyone who's currently building using Aura, you don't need to worry about this, but you can start using Lightning Web. In this very simple recipe here, we've got Aura as the container component, and we've got a Lightning Web Component that displays a list of contacts within it. If we just click on Amy Taylor, for example, it gets visualized on the side as a rendered component over in Aura. So let's take a look at the source code here. We can see in this Aura embedded component, we've got our Lightning component, which is the Aura element, and within it, we've got our contact list tag. That's the Lightning Web Component. What's really amazing about this is that it's the same syntax between Aura and between a Lightning Web Component. So as a developer, I don't need to learn anything new. It's all there. I can just start using Lightning Web Components. How's that for compatibility? It's pretty good, right? Let's just jump back onto the recipe page. And we'll just scroll down a bit. So at the bottom of this page, we've got the same use case, but this time, they're sitting side by side and they're coexisting on the page. They're not embedded. So on the left, we've got our Aura component, and this is where we enter in our search. Let's search for a contact. Let's do Amy again. And then over in the middle, we've got our Lightning Web Component. So it's invoking a callback method to actually get the contact through events. Let's check out the code behind this one. So this is the JavaScript class. We can see all the connected callback method and the disconnected callback method that they were calling when they were communicating with each other. Let's say I didn't know what the connected callback method did. It was new to me. I had no idea. I've never built on web standards before. I've got no idea. What does that do? Well, because this is using modern web standards, we can just Google it. So let's copy it. Let's switch to Google, and let's look it up. Connected callback, what are you? First hit we get it's MDN, and it tells us all about this custom element. If we scroll down, we can find out all about this connected callback function, what it is, what it does, and related methods as well. Previously, if I wanted to find out about a method like that, I would have had to have gone searching through all of our developer communities, trying to figure out what was going on. Here, it's all just a couple of clicks away, and it's all publicly available. That's the benefit of building with modern web standards. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview, and you can see how that would really help you build your apps faster. I'm just going to switch back over now. Thank you very much, Satya. I'm going to hand over to the lovely Heather, who's going to talk to us now about building with modern developer experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. So I'm super excited today to be talking to you all about how we can actually build with a modern developer experience, leveraging Salesforce CX to take advantage of all of those amazing things that Hannah just showed us, where we were learning how to build with modern web standards. So let's dive in. But before we do that, I just want to give you a quick introduction to who I am. I'm Heather Dykstra. I'm a developer evangelist at Salesforce, and I'm based in the United States, so I'm really honored to be able to be here today to connect with all of you. So I'd love to connect after this, just so that I get to meet all of you in this amazing Sydney Ohana. So let's dive in. How do we build apps faster with a modern developer experience with Salesforce DX? Well, it all starts with accelerating our developer productivity. And then we actually allow you to work with your favorite tools every single day. And of course, because we're Salesforce, we work with any org. We work to make sure that you're successful. So how do we develop and actually accelerate developer productivity? Well, there are a couple of ways. We do this first by building with Visual Studio Code and the Salesforce extension pack, which is really a state-of-the-art IDE. But we also let you use whatever you're currently using. But if you are using VS Code in our extension pack, you're going to benefit from some amazing language services that are going to give us some IntelliSense and help us understand where we are in our code when we're in the code. We'll show you that a little bit in our demo. You're also going to get ensured code quality and reliability because you're actually benefiting from all of those services. As you're developing, you're actually interacting with what you know to be the best way to do something. All right. We also then allow you now to drive all of your app development from source. This was not always true, so we've transitioned this a little bit, where you can now actually develop from source or from org using all of our toolkits, whether that's the CLI, change sets, packaging, whatever it may be. We work with you. And we work with you in another way as well. We work with any org development process that you might be using. Whether you're very focused on org-based development and you're deploying from sandbox to full data all the way up to production, or maybe you're leveraging our new unlocked packaging, or you're a regular package-based development for a partner of ours, we're going to work with you. But enough slides, because this isn't my favorite thing to do. Let's dive into our demo, Satya. All right, here we are. So we're here in the sample gallery again, which Hannah did a lovely job showing us how we can get hands-on with recipes. But now, Satya and I are going to take you through e-bikes, which is a retail application. So Satya, let's just dive right in. Let's look at our Product Explorer page. All right, so here we have our retail application. We're selling electronic bikes. Cool. And if we click around, we can actually start to get information about each of these bikes. We can see that this is a mountain bike. It costs $1,900. This is really great. But it feels like we're missing something on this page. There's a little bit of a blank space, and I would really love to be able to filter. So that's what I'm going to show you right now, is how we can build this component with Salesforce DX live today. So Satya, let's switch over to our code. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm sitting here in VS Code, and I want to pull up the command palette to look for Salesforce DX commands. Because maybe I want to create a new Lightning component. So let's search for Salesforce DX, and we'll see that I could actually create a Lightning component or create a brand new project right here, and I don't have to remember all of the Salesforce CLI syntax. VS Code's providing all of that for me. But Satya, we already started working on our component, so let's actually go ahead and look for that component now, our product filter class. Product tile list. Yes. There we are. All right, so let's scroll up to the top, and let's look at some things here. So just like Hannah already showed us, if we look at our import, we're actually importing an Apex method here called getProducts. But what's really cool about the fact that we're using the Salesforce CX extensions is if we hover over Get Products, we're going to get some amazing IntelliSense. This is mind-blowingly extra productive amazingness. We actually get to see here that we're looking for 2 different parameters when I call Get Products. We're looking for filters and page number. This is super helpful because now I don't have to open up my Apex class while I'm trying to write this JavaScript file. All right, so I know now we need filters. I saw some red down below. Let's go ahead and scroll down. And we're going to see here a little bit further. There's our red. All right, we've done something wrong. Our IDE is telling us that, hey, we're never calling filters. We're never actually setting this. So Satya, let's add a new line of code. And we're going to fix our filters. We're actually going to make it so that Apex is able to handle this a little bit better. We're going to put it into JSON. Let's save this, and then let's actually pull up our terminal. Let's use the CLI, and let's deploy this code to our org. So we're going to use the force source deploy command. Maybe. All right, there we are. So we're going to use the force source deploy command to push that code that we just wrote, fixing those filters, up to our org. And we're going to wait just a moment. I think we're going to be successful. Satya, let's go see if that deployed. Let's go ahead and scroll over, and let's actually edit this in App Builder. So we're going to actually pull on our brand new Lightning Web Component to our page. So we'll hit Edit Page. Awesome. And then over on the left-hand side, we'll see our standard components and then our custom components. And we're going to pull that brand new product filter custom component onto our page. All right, there it is, product filter. We'll pull it on. Awesome, we're going to hit save and back. And assuming that we just deployed that correctly, we should now be able to go ahead and say, I just want to look for mountain bikes. Let's get rid of those commuter bikes. Awesome, and let's get rid of the bikes made of aluminum. And why don't we also change the price? I don't want to see that price that was $7,000, something that's less than that. All right, that should be good. Oh, awesome, okay, so it looks like our filters are working. We think that that filter command actually was successful, but I want to make sure, so let's go back to our IDE and let's finish our development cycle here. So we can see that we did successfully deploy, awesome, but now we actually want to run one more command. We want to run our retrieve command, because we just made a change in our org, and we want to make sure that it's the same here down in source. So we're going to use the sister command of that deploy command. We're going to use force source retrieve, and we're going to specify the -m flag to pull down just our Flexi page that we just edited, because I don't want to pull down my whole org. I only want to pull down the one thing that I changed. Now this is taking a moment because we actually are calling up to the server and pulling that change down. So while this is working, our source is going to be up to date just in a moment here. But there's something else that we can do while we're working for this. Let's actually go ahead. Oh, it looks like it was successful. Awesome. Let's go ahead and now start thinking about, all right, I was this amazing user. I did this thing. I filtered, but maybe I had a problem. Well, we would like to look at the debug log for that user, right? So Satya, let's pull up our command palette one more time, and let's search for Apex debug. Now, right here in Salesforce, or in VS Code with the Salesforce extensions, I can just pull down a debug log. But Satya and I prepared, we already had one from a user that was using this interface earlier. So let's actually launch the replay debugger with our last log file. All right. Okay. So here's our log file. How many of you have seen one of these long log files? Have you tried to remember exactly what it means when we're allocating things to the heap? And oh man, this is like going back to C++ programming. This isn't great, but if I hit play, I'm actually transported into a whole new view where we can see our variables on the left-hand side and the Apex code that was running at the time of our execution. So if I press play one more time, we're stepping into our code. We're actually going to see here that we're filtering now by mountain. So our user that ran this, when they ran this debug log, that's what they were filtering for when they were looking for bikes. So this is really helpful because now I can see this on my local org, and I don't have to worry about how long it took you or what you think you saw. I now can just pull it down right here in my local workspace. This is amazing for productivity gains. Okay, but there's a couple more things that we have to do, right? Because we've been writing some Apex, we've been writing some Lightning Web Components. It's probably a good idea if we test. So let's actually go ahead and click on that little beaker on the left-hand side. And this is going to pull up our Apex tests. Now let's run that set of tests that's blue right now. And let's see if we can't get those to pass. So we're going to run those, and we're actually running this up against our server again because these are running our Apex tests. So when this is done, it's going to tell us how many lines of code we have covered in our Apex. It's going to tell us how long it took to run, and we're going to make sure that we're in good shape. So we can see that right now the CLI is running. It's going to take another few seconds, but as soon as it's done, we're going to get all that contextual information down here. All right, so it's good. We can scroll down, and we'll see we've got some passes, and we're at 100% test run coverage and 93% org-wide. We're at 93% org-wide because we didn't run that first set of tests. If we would have run all of the tests, we would be at 100% right now. So we're in really good shape, Satya, but this was just Apex, right? All right, so let's see how we can actually test our Lightning Web Components. Let's open up a jest file that we've been working with. So we're going to use our command palette one more time. And this time we're going to search for that product filter.test.js. There we go. All right, so now we're in this jest file. And jest is a framework released by Facebook that we're using to test our Lightning Web Components because it's great for testing JavaScript. And we've actually installed a jest extension from the web extension pack so that we could actually get some inline idea of what was happening here. So this test is actually describing a filter change event, and we're going to fire it when our slider value changes. And this is to make sure that that price filter is actually working. And so it looks like we've got some red here. Satya, can we open up the Problems tab and dive into what that red means? Something's wrong. Okay, so it looks like here we're actually calling this function with an argument of we're expecting 500 and we're getting 50. So it looks like we made a typo in our test. Let's go to line 65 and change that 50 to a 500. Let's change it to the expected value. All right, let's save that. And because we've got that extension, it's going to automatically run that test. And we're going to go ahead and very soon, I promise, we'll see that little red dot turn to green. Even if not, all right, that's all right. It should do that as soon as we save. There we are. We can now see that our test is running successfully. And that was a lot faster here because we were working locally with these tests. All right, so this is amazing, and that is how we can actually start to build apps faster with a modern developer experience. So let's go back to our slides. All right. So I'm sure you're all really excited about all of this. There was a lot of technology that we covered today, from Lightning Web Components to Salesforce CX to even a little bit of Apex. It was fun, right? You can get hands-on with Trailhead and learn everything that we've talked about today by going to our lovely link here on this slide. And that also will take you to the sample gallery if you want to download the different applications that we showed you today or explore some of our other sample apps that we have. So with that, I'd like to say thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I look forward to meeting all of you after this.